Last week we did the lead nurture. Previous week we did the lead generation. And so looking to round this one off with pillar number three being lead conversion, i.e., how can we close more deals from the stuff that's coming through? So, yeah, man, I know that obviously as the world goes around on sales, it doesn't matter whether it's, software for you guys or if it's, bloody retail or whatever else. If you can't close the deal, then you're not going to get very far.
Exactly, exactly.
I know we've chatted about this briefly as well. So, going to cover off a few bits and pieces here. Is there anything else you would add into that whole thing?
Um, I know for us, when people move to Build Exact, often the quotes they were producing
Hmm.
take a really long time to do to make them look
Yeah.
really nice. As in, sorry, let me rephrase that. Some people produce quotes really, really quickly and
Yep.
don't look very good. Not everyone, obviously. Um, with us, obviously, you get the really nice quotes quite quickly.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that whole process of actually the time to get back to people also plays a big part as well, or at least the honesty of you giving them a timeline and sticking to it.
Yeah. 100%. As, and I think I said to someone else the other day, I don't know if it was on this call or something else, but I think literally you don't need to be good at sales. You just need to be good at doing the basics. And I think a lot of people miss that. So, there's some basic things that you need to do, which is follow people up, get back to them promptly, give them the info that they need, etc. And if you can do those things really well, then everything just moves forward really well. And 9 people out of 10 aren't going to do the basics well. And so, I guess part of this is I can cover off a few of the nuanced pieces of it all, as far as the things you can do extra, but at the same time, making sure that we can just speed up the process of the basics really, really well. So I'll rip into things. Um,
Yeah.
and if anyone has any questions along the way, feel free to jump in. But let's do this. Jump back to my pretty little diagram here and I'll share my screen.
And probably just provides another talking point there, Cam, is like this is maybe a bit of a more of a real world example. My wife and I, we've got a kid who's very, very high energy. We've got no family here, one cousin now, but we're pretty alone for the most part, and doing things and getting things done around the house. And I think this is the reason I'm saying it. I think this is what a lot of people actually have happen in their business. They have the things that they need to get done. So they need to do the like for me and us, it's we need to do the dishes, we need to get him down to bed, we need to get him fed, showered, etc., etc. So I think people you do these things that you need to do, but then all the other things just fall by the wayside. That's what happens to us in our house. Like we just
Mm,
we forget to do all these other little things, and then those things build up and they feel like a harder chore or a bigger chore to have to get through. And I feel like that's a lot of people in business where you kind of like I'll get back to the emails I have to do. I've got to get back to a subby, so I'll do that. So I've got no time to do my marketing, and then I think you just end up in this sort of circle of or chicken egg kind of thing. It's just like you have a problem that's caused by the thing that you can't fix it, and it's and
yeah.
you just kind of end up in this going around thing. I think that's what happens with a lot of people. That's why I always say to people, it's like try and surround yourself with people that know their stuff in their particular space. I chose a more polite S word with stuff there than what I was thinking of there. But
Yeah.
I think that's a big problem. While everyone's joining, I just thought I'd go into that. But I think sometimes it's like taking a step back and sort of looking at all the things you need to get done and trying to figure out a way to do it. And sometimes that's bringing other people in. Sometimes it's better prioritization of your day. Sometimes it's adding in new processes, whether that's software or just in your business in general. I think
Yeah.
those sort of things really help. And I'm a very um, very detailed on certain things, and my wife is like completely the opposite. And she's just like when you see something, she'll do it, and then other than that, things. So we have this kind of like battle internally all the time, and I'm sure people in business, you have husband wife teams, partners, etc. in the business that do that all the time. Where we often see in our world that it's generally the partner, the female partner in the business that's like trying to get the male to like change, and the male is just like I've done this thing for the same way for so long, and it's just hard to break them down. So
Yes. 100%, man. No, you're dead right. So, um, I've literally just to recap that whole thing is like, let's figure out how to just tick the boxes, get things moving forward. And I guarantee most people have more deals sitting around that they don't realize.
yeah,
That if they just, moved things forward and got back to people, then they would probably make more money. So, um, That said, I've got a few other pieces here. I'm just looking for one more example that I'll bring up later on. But um, a lot of the process in here goes back to the overall diagram. So I'll share my screen here, and we can kick this thing off. So just recapping on this one, uh, there are those three parts of the marketing, right? In order to get high value projects, i.e., the thing in the middle that we all want, not the shitty ones, not the the big ones that are good for our ego but make no money, but high value projects that don't take up all our time with great clients. We need to have lead generation to fill the gaps to get people coming through the door. We need to have lead nurture because at least half the leads that come through will be good but not ready. And then the third piece of the puzzle here being the lead conversion. So that's what we're going to focus on today and how can we convert more leads into deals. And there's a few things we're going to cover off here. Okay. So the um, I guess most people are going to struggle with this because they feel like they need to be a sales expert. And realistically, that's not the case. So what we want to do is we want to take that sales ability off you and instead have everything available that you can use at your disposal to convert people at a high rate. And what that means is, we want to have a script for our phone conversation. We want to have a resource to walk through on site. We want to make sure that we've got all these things lined up so that the sales process is systemized. Okay. And if we take a look at some of the bits and pieces that we'll cover off, we talked briefly about the rapid response system last time, which falls into a hybrid of lead nurture and lead conversion, i.e., can you get to them quickly? Can you follow them up? And so we're going to skip past that one here and we're going to focus on the leads come through. We've followed them up and everything and we've connected with them. So if we take a look at the sales process here, I'm going to zoom in on a sort of internal doc that we use here to outline things. All of this stuff here is lead generation, getting the leads through the door. In the middle here is focused down on all the things you need to do to nurture them, to keep them moving through. And if we just focus down here on this sort of bottom right hand side, there is a couple of things that we want to do in and around our sales process. So before we even speak with them, there are a couple of pieces that are going to be really, really important, which again falls into this hybrid of lead nurture as well and educating prospects on the way through. But if we have a lead come through that's a good fit, we want to put these two pages in front of them for the bigger jobs anyway. If we have smaller jobs coming through, bathrooms, kitchens, decking, fencing, that kind of thing, then we just send them through to a calendar and get them to book a time to speak. But for those larger projects, it's obviously a big buying decision. And what we want to do is we want to educate them so that when we speak with them, it becomes very, very easy. So again, this does overlap with the lead nurture thing, but we have these two pages which work their magic really, really well. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is a lead comes through. Typically, they're reaching out because they're not an expert at building a house, right? They're going to have questions like, where do I get started? How much is it going to cost? What's the process? What's the difference between this and that? And before we even get past that point, what we want to do is we want to show them all the things that happen in the process. And so what we do is we're pre-selling them, okay? And what this page does is it outlines the old way of doing things versus the new way, i.e., previously you would go and talk to an architect, they draw you up some beautiful plans, and then they come to the builder, i.e. yourself, and you quote them up the job, and then they say, oh, that's way out of budget, why are you being such a dick? And in reality, it's because the architect has overspec'd what they can actually do for their budget. So really, really common process, and the design-led approach or the consultative approach is such a better approach to do it, but most people don't understand that. So if we were to outline this page, it is really just educating people on the best way to approach their project, okay? And so now that they understand that, we then want to show them this page here, which outlines a solution to that problem, which is preliminary planning or feasibility studies. So if I was to open up a new tab here, oops, if I can spell, let's do this. Got diagrams coming out my ears. But basically, this is everything in your marketing that you need to be doing. Okay, just another way of looking at it. And up until here, this is all of the lead generation stuff. And over here is the sales related stuff. So what we want to do is lead comes through, we put them through that process. They've seen those pages. the next thing we want to do is reach out to them, okay? And so that's where we've got that overlap again with the AI reaching out to them, sending them a text, confirming their time to reach out and all that sort of stuff to have the conversation. And going back to here, that's basically the same process where they've seen these pages, they then go through and can pick a time for a call, or the text message comes through them and they book a time for a call. Either way, the next thing that you do here in green is pick up the phone and call them. Seems really, really straightforward, right? But we obviously want to make sure that we do that with a framework and a script and everything else in order to make sure that they go through the process really well. So there's a script that I can share with you guys, which I'm happy to shoot over to you after this, which basically consultative approach, but also making sure you've covered off all these things with clear next steps and everything else. And so uh, what ends up happening on that, 9 times out of 10, is even if you have a good conversation with someone, you hang up the phone and you promise the world, and then you forget about it. Okay. Very, very typical. Everyone's busy. You might be in and out of meetings. You might have stuff happen on site. You might be driving while you're talking to someone. And so then how can we actually bridge the gap here of being professional and just understanding or having people feel like they were heard? Okay. This is one fundamental piece that works really, really well for AI. Okay. Because you're going to have a 20, sorry, 10 to 15 to 20-minute conversation with someone. There's a lot of stuff that you talk about that are specifics around their project and what they're looking for and everything. And if you can capture that context, you can use AI to basically do your job for you. If you don't do anything else other than click the button or grab their email address, open up your app on your phone and just recap a couple of points that you spoke about and ping it off, you're going to get 90% of the way there because nobody else recaps on what they're talking about. So do have a bit of a framework for this, but one thing that you can do as well is I'm just going to open up a contact record here and I can get rid of all the personal stuff. And let me do this. So inside this contact record here, this is one I just chose at random. We have these couple of things here. Now, basically what they do is we classify them as tools. What we do is we have one here for scope of work, and it drafts a scope of work for you. You tick that box, you click save, and what that'll actually do is generate an entire scope of work for what you guys spoke about on the phone so that you can copy and paste it and send it off as an email, okay? And so that's the advanced version of it. But basically what you need to do is have a pen and paper in the truck, write down the specifics of their project, i.e. the key points that they're trying to achieve there, and send it to them as an email. Really, really straightforward. If you don't have a system like this or anything like that, that's totally fine. Do it manually. Or option number two, there are voice recording things you can use for your phone. Just make sure whichever state you're in that you check the legalities around recording and consent. But for most people, that's fine. And so what you can then do is you can go into ChatGPT and you can do this on your phone, or you can do this, on the computer. And I don't know, chuck a one in the box if you've heard of this little tool here called ChatGPT. Hopefully, it's pretty helpful at the moment for a lot of people. Cool. So there is another way of doing this, perfect, which is really, really helpful because I myself am not a writer. Okay, I have good ideas, I have concepts, all these other things. Most of you guys will be in a similar boat in that you're not a natural writer. What you want to do is you want to come into here, and there is this magic little button here called dictate. Okay. And so what we want to do is this. We want to tap this button here and go, make sure we've got microphone access done. Cool. So I just spoke with a client named Julian. He's looking to renovate his home, wants to knock down the wall in between the kitchen and living so there's a bit more open plan space. Wants to redo the interior for painting. Obviously, we'll have to reline all the walls that were modified. Wants to update all the fixtures and fittings in the place. Then move on to the kitchen with a whole new refit there, new cabinets and everything. And then he has one bathroom that's off to the side on the lower level that we want to redo at the same time. And while we're there, he's getting ready for summer, so he wants to do a deck that we can get really nice done, and he wants Queeler on that. Can you please write me up a scope of work and that I can send to him in an email? Right. And what does that take in all of, 45 seconds to voice clip out a sort of really basic recap, okay, of what you spoke about on the phone. You click send there, okay, and it's going to give you a pretty basic outline here around what was spoken about. So this is really, if you can do this, like fundamental stuff, but getting back to people quickly has always been the Achilles heel of anybody in the service-based industry because you're constantly on the go. If you can open up a thing here and do this, obviously you're going to have to give it a bit of an edit, a bit of a cleanup, which is fine. But this is going to get you most of the way. Hey, blah, 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 blah. Cool. Awesome. Right. Copy, paste, send it off. Right. Everybody think that they can do that. Seems pretty straightforward. I guess that's key number one is making sure that you can get back to people timely. Okay. I know the voice feature is probably Julian's latest discovery. I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, mate, I love it. I love it. Honestly, I we did an AI webinar maybe 6 months or so ago now, and it is honestly changed my life. Like I now pay for ChatGPT for the extra subscription just because I love using it so much. Um, but like Cam was saying there, guys, like if you're not if because I know this is for me, like sometimes if I'm writing an email to Cam, it's really easy. But if I've got to write an email to my CEO, he likes things written in a certain way, and you want to talk about things in a certain way that's very clear and concise in terms of how he reads it. And if you sometimes just struggle, or sometimes you go, oh, I'm going to write this email to this customer. How am I going to write it? Does this make sense? Da, 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 da. Just honestly voice it in. It's so much easier. I think naturally when you type, I think you naturally overthink and you delete and you re-edit and text generation as well, like shortening everything and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Pop it into there, and it'll generate. And then you can re-prompt it as well. Like if it doesn't come out what you want, you say, oh well, I want to add another stage in here and da 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 da. It's honestly it's a game changer.
Yeah, huge, eh? And I think you really touched on a good point there. When you type things, you're trying to condense your thoughts into the words that you're typing. So one, it's slow, and number two, you're missing all of that underlying thought pattern behind it all as well. And I think people try to get it perfect, as in, they try to um, they try to get all the typos and all that sort of stuff right and how they present the information. When you actually do this properly, I'll show you an example in a minute. I'm just looking for one other instruction that we can use. Is you do want to put your thought pattern in there. So let's go back to that same example because typically what happens when somebody comes through and they do this sort of thing, they then say, okay, how much is this going to cost? Right? And you can say, how big's a piece of string? And what you want to do is obviously get in front of them and go through the process, but they can have a ballpark obviously to go from, and that's fine. So what
Or
we
you can use the build exact AI cam and just plug it in and it'll generate an estimate in about 3 minutes for you.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you're bang on, man. So, I mean, use the tools that are available for you. Like, that's what they're there for. And, you can do a rough job here of the scope of work and everything else. And there's going to be things that you miss off. And so you can clarify that and then you can plug it into Build Exact and you can get yourself a price done really, really easily. And then obviously have that all available when logged and everything, which makes it really easy to manage. But if we just go back to our same example here, I'm just going to copy and paste this one thing before I do that. And I'm going to, cool, share this one. So if we go into here, we can see how it's done an update of all of the scope of work and everything that we talked about. Um, what we can actually do here is we can use it to clarify as well. And so we can send it off. We can make sure that they're proactive and everything else. We can also try and move the deal along faster. Most of the time, people get lost or they don't really like they could be keen as, but they still don't know what the process is and how to move things along further. So one of the things that we do, and I'll sort of work into both methods here, is we have a 200-page build planner, which like this. Um, Basically, it is a call it a Bible for building a house or renovating. It covers off everything like selections. It covers off fixtures and fittings, it covers off planning, insurances, like everything that they need to think about is in here. Now, from a sales perspective, you can go through and you can try to cover off these things in person, but basically you'll never remember them all. And you're having a conversation with somebody to basically forget about it at the end of the day. And same with them, they won't remember exactly what you said. And so what we want to do is we want to try and push people into a feasibility study. And so I'll take a look at that in just 1 second. But just before we do that, I wanted to share this piece here because what Julian said around editing, making updates to it and things like that. Um, we can go in here and we can do this. Yeah, so the client came back to this email and they were asking for a ballpark price. Now, he's in, Mornington Peninsula in Melbourne. And just looking for some rough estimates of costings here, just broken down roughly by stage, including my margin and everything else, so that I can go back to them with really, really loose numbers that obviously need to be clarified. Can you give me some estimates there on what it might cost so that we're not giving them sticker shock? Okay, and that was clearly just a rambling of what I'm trying to get it to do. Cool. So let's give Julian some numbers here based on typical prices in the Mornington Peninsula, including your margin, etc. Okay, so these ranges are actually a good thing and rounded numbers are a good thing. But we can then go back to them and go, hey, I know you were looking at a budget of 200K. Here's roughly what it's going to, come out to be. If we need to be flexible in some areas, we can. Then that's where we want to talk about fixtures and fittings and everything else. And then you segue into the pitch. Okay. The best thing to do is get a plan together for your project, and that's what we do during a feasibility study, where we'll go through, understand your needs, wants, and goals, figure out a ballpark timeline and estimate, and give you together a plan so that whether you work with us or not, you understand what you're in for, and you don't get shocked at the other end of the project. Would that be helpful? And naturally, people nod their head on the phone. But if there is one thing that we have implemented with clients over the last 18 months has been this feasibility study. Okay. Now, the reason why we did this is because if I was to refer back to here, we track everything along the pipeline as far as where people get to. So we've got keep warm, new leads, qualifying call, qualified lead, keep as in keep to move forward. This one here is slightly different, looking for land, discovery call, design, prelim, etc. Now, there was a lot of people who were coming through this process and were basically getting to site meeting and then going nowhere. And so one of our clients was like, hey, this is not working. I don't know what's going wrong. We took a look at all the numbers and yeah, they were basically hitting a brick wall at the site meeting and not moving forward. So we said, okay, what's the process look like? They're building high-end custom homes. And the next step for them was basically design, preliminaries, things like that. And they're in the 15 to 20K ballpark for that service, which is justified, right? And it's covering all the time needed to do those things. But from someone that you've just met, it's like, it's like walking up to someone in the bar and saying, let's get married. It's a really, really hard thing to do. At least in my neck of the woods anyways. I don't know about you shady characters over there, Julie.
Depends if you're in Vegas or not, mate. It might be a lot
Yeah,
easier.
yeah, 100%. So what we've actually done is we've broken it out to this feasibility and then preliminaries. Okay, so just to recap on the process that you should be taking for moving a lead through the system. Lead comes through. We want to obviously reach out quickly, follow them up multiple times, and we want to have a discovery call with them. Essentially, what we want to do is qualify them. Are they a good fit for us, and vice versa, or refer them to someone who is a better fit? We don't have to necessarily work with everybody. We want to just work with the best people. We want to position the site meeting. If possible, send them a physical package after this before you turn up, and of course have reminders and things like that. Then after the discovery call, you've organized a time to meet. So you meet on site, okay? And this is where you obviously want to scope the project, show authority, and position the feasibility, which was already, if we go back to this one, was already positioned back here in the marketing that you're doing as well. So we're tying the marketing and the sales process and everything together so that they're not just getting blindsided by this process. They've seen it throughout the process here. And then what we're doing is in the site meeting. Cool. Awesome. Got a good handle of the project. Now, as you would have seen previously, our process revolves around a feasibility study. Do you understand what that is? Yes, no, depending on how much they've read. Cool. Well, the feasibility study is both for you and for us to understand what's involved in this project. What are your needs, wants, and goals? Because you might want high-end finishes here, and you might not care so much about this section of the project, or you might have certain things that are more important to you than others. We want to make sure we get those all out onto paper so that it's not left to chance. We'll do a site evaluation. We'll look at zoning, permits, and any issues that might arise, and we'll give you a budget and a timeline for your project. So at least that way, you're not going to get halfway into a project and realize that it's not possible. Does that sound like something that'd be helpful? Yep, cool. So we just want to cover our time for that process, and we charge 1,500 bucks. Right? We charge 3 grand. Like, pick a number. Doesn't really matter what it is. It's just about getting commitment at this point. Okay. And so all you're doing is taking them off the market, right, to work with you in a consultative way, because otherwise you're going to do it for free anyway. And then you're going to come back in 9 months' time and go, God damn, I spent so much time with these people and they just told me it's a no. And so we're locking them in by getting a small commitment. They're giving you money, it covers your time. So it's a break even at this point. It's not a big deal. Now, when you do this well, it also cash flows your marketing. So we've got a guy in the States who's absolutely crushing this at the moment because he's following the process well. In the last 2 weeks, he has signed 6 of these agreements, and they're at an average of 2.5. And so I'm never going to do public math, but let's call that, 10K, right? Which I know is wrong, but I'm going to round number here. So just for the privilege of them speaking with you and working through the process to figure out their dreams, right? What they're trying to achieve, they're getting paid for that and that process. Now, what you do from this point is go, if you move forward with us, we'll refund that into the project. And so what happens is whether they're ready now, okay, it doesn't matter if they're not going to be ready for 9 months' time, you still want to go through this process because you're going to be locking them in to coming back to you when it is possible. And you're doing them a hell of a service to making sure that this project is actually possible rather than spending a bunch of time, wasting each other's time when it might not even be possible. Okay? Just yeah, give us a one in the comments if you think that that's something that you would want to do. And I know the follow-up questions that are going to come from this, but Julian, if there's something else you wanted to add to that, or you're all good.
Yeah, I was going to say, mate, when we were talking about earlier on while everyone's popping these things in, the AI estimating stuff, I just literally just tried this. As you might have seen me playing around with my screen
Yeah.
buttons. I just did the AI estimation using Build Exact. So it took about 3 minutes or so to generate a bathroom reno. You can obviously give it a check over to make sure things are correct and stuff in there, but you can download that into an Excel sheet, populate into ChatGPT, prompt it. The exact prompt I put was uh, please break down this estimate into an email to a client, give rough price ranges, not specifics on the actual estimate for this bathroom reno. Obviously, you could provide a lot more detail, and I probably would have done if I was voice noting it.
Mm,
It generated a full email with all the stuff in there. So, do you mind if I just quickly share my screen, mate, just
go
to
for it,
show
man.
how
Go
easy
for it.
this is? Because obviously, using AI is great and stuff. Our AI, it takes it a step further because it's got all your supplier connections already in there.
It's all that context, right? Like it's all of that extra
Exactly.
info. Like ChatGPT knows very little about you and your process and your suppliers, and it's giving very generic answers. Whereas I'm sure that what we see here is more specifics.
Yeah, so you can see this is the estimate that this is all generated from Build Exact. So this is just an Excel download from it.
Cool.
But the estimate you can see there, quote 1375. So that's what I prompted into it. Terrible spelling. Um, and then yeah, so it does it all there. It's a high cost level guide. So it's telling me what the demolition cost is going to be, the carpentry, the plumbing, etc., etc. So obviously it's giving you the ranges based on what your actual estimates are, not necessarily just what the AI is thinking. So obviously
Mm,
fine tune it a little bit when it comes out of the AI using our system. Or if you're not using the AI using Build Exact, you just have an estimate that you just pop in. It just sometimes I think this sort of way helps in terms of like helping people be able to communicate in a client friendly way.
mm.
But also use this for any client emails that, you get a snotty email from a client about something isn't right or something, and you're fighting all your urges to be a smart ass back to them. But
Yep.
yeah, ChatGPT can alleviate. You can still voice note your anger into it and then say, don't make it angry. So you feel like you've got it out, but then the ChatGPT responds. But I think
Tones it
it's
back.
awesome.
Yeah.
This is just really easy. You can go in and like re prompt it to sort of fine tune it. But
Yep.
look, my recommendation is hopefully buildings that gets this in their system at some point where we can generate a thing like this. It wouldn't be hard to do because obviously we're always connecting it to AI anyway. But
Mm.
yeah, use this if you 3 minutes to an estimate, maybe 5 minutes just to fine tune it, make sure things look right.
Yep.
Download it, pop it into here. You can give people a price range estimate back within 15 minutes.
Mm.
And it's all live pricing from suppliers. So your timber items, your tiling and stuff that are coming from those suppliers are all up to date.
Yeah. Fantastic. Totally agree. And I think, a lot of people at the moment, the comments that are coming back are, oh, we didn't realize how much things cost nowadays, right? And so if you can always give people the time of day. You never know what small projects might turn into big projects later on. And try and just help educate them on the process or where they're currently at. I spoke to a guy 18 months ago and he was too small and, I gave him some advice and helped him out. And he's just come back and said, hey, we're now in a different position. Can we work with you? So you never know what kind of relationships are out there. And so if you can give a little bit of your time to do these things within reason, obviously, then you want to make sure that you know, go through ChatGPT, shorten the process. And obviously, in a past life, pre AI and all this sort of stuff, it would take a lot of time, and that's why people didn't do it. Whereas now you don't really have an excuse because it's so fast to whip these things together.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think that there's a time and a place for everything. So with Build Exact, with project management softwares, with sort of all these other tools in and around there, use them where they're most valuable, right? If you can give someone a rough guide off the top of your head, perfect. If they're happy with that, then you can go in and spend the time getting a little bit closer and then give it back to them again after that initial conversation. And then once you've sorted out things like, your selections checklist and all that sort of stuff, then you can do a much better job and redo it properly. So you need to just do it all in phases rather than trying to go from, hi, I've just met you and this is crazy. Yeah. So straight into
2012 right there.
yeah. And then going straight into awesome. I'm happy to do all this for you. Yeah, that'd be 15K for me to do a quote. Nicole actually just chucked in the comments there around rather than calling it charging for a quote. I like the idea of calling it a feasibility study, which is perfect. Like the offer is really important how you frame it up. And so, feel free to rob and deploy what I'm saying because it's working really, really well. Is you are literally doing a feasibility study, i.e., is this project feasible? Is this project possible? And then moving them through into preliminary planning, which sounds better than a quote and sounds better than everything else as well. So the wording is really important. The process is really important. And then obviously, once you've done that process and given it back to them, there's a couple of people who are like, well, that sounds like a lot of work, okay, for this feasibility study. You know what we do is we get your phone, put it on voice recorder mode, or, you take one of these wearable AI things that we've got and you push record, you go into the meeting, you have, a resource like this, okay, and I'll give you another option in a minute. And you go, okay, guys, great to meet you. We're going to go through this process together, whether it's on Zoom or in person. So what we're going to cover off today is this is going to be the resource that you go through for the entire project. But what we're going to do today was we're going to cover off pages 20, 85, and 113. Okay. And then I'm going to leave this with you so that you can have everything you need at your fingertips to plan your project and get it all out on paper so that we can get this process knocked out really quickly. Okay. Sound fair enough? Yep. Cool. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get into it. So what are your goals? What are you must-haves? What are you, not so much caring about? Blah, blah, blah. And then you leave the meeting and you take that voice recording and you can do another round of AI on it. So really, really easy to pull those together. And if you want to go the extra mile, you go on Google Maps or your local council, or permit sort of viewer, and you can look up all the little drainage paths and all that sort of stuff, and you can screenshot that, and nobody really knows what it looks like from the consumer's end, but it makes it look like you've done a bit of extra homework. Okay, so putting a few visuals is really helpful. Um, and then basically, where are we? So that's that one. That's going back to the thing. Uh, Going back to this one here, if we wanted to do it, we don't have those resources available. what we want to do is we want to go, okay, I'm just about to meet up with Julian. I'm sitting outside his house here and I'm unprepared, but we've got our meeting in 2 minutes. What I need you to do is prepare me a bit of an outline here for a feasibility study, as in needs, wants, and goals, looking at selections and things like that. Can you help me prepare that agenda and include, based off of what this project might cover off, some of the options that we might have to cover off for selections and things like that so that we can get those knocked out and then I can give them a bit more of an understanding after this. Okay, so again, really poor job of explaining it, but just sort of voicing out what we're trying to do. Okay, and as far as a way to use this most effectively, for every client or specific, person that you're dealing with, you have one chat. Okay. If you start to work with someone else, you open a new chat and you keep it all isolated. Okay. You can attach images or plans or PDFs, that sort of thing in here, and it'll all add into the context. But you just got to keep one chat about one specific end goal. Okay. So there we go. Here's a rough outline of what you can cover off. Okay. And if you wanted to, you could put this onto a Google Doc and print it out. And if you want to look really official, get yourself a folio, a $10 folio from the warehouse stationery or whatever, or a clipboard, And that way, when you turn up, you look really prepared and you've got an agenda that you're going to go through and you can get all this stuff out on paper to basically work from. Okay. Obviously, into this thing, you can grab your voice recording, transcribe it, put it in here and go, here's how the meeting went. How did I do? Did I do good or did I do bad? What am I missing? What do I need to send them as a follow up? That sort of thing. Okay. Just sound pretty easy of a process. That's all we're doing. We don't need to solve everything at this one point. We're really just getting everything out on paper because I guarantee you if five other people turn up and they are the ones that are going to do the same thing as you, they're going to maybe take a few scribbles on a bit of paper. They're going to, yep, talk, listen, sound good, and then they're going to leave and they're not going to reply to that client for at least 3 days, 5 days, maybe a week or two. And everyone's just going to get annoyed with them and they'll go, oh, well, this person got back to me within 30 minutes of leaving the site. Shit, I'm going to go with them. Okay. So yeah, really basic stuff there, guys. Um, what else have we got here? I think the next couple of things that you want to do is, or any questions, feel free to chuck them in, right? As we're going along here, literally just covering off fast ways of doing the basics well. So we're ignoring the free quotes. We're not calling it a paid quote or anything like that. We're doing a specific feasibility service. Um, Now, the next thing to do is making sure that we go through a bit of a framework for presenting this back to them. So probably the last thing here that people really drop the ball on is they might put the price together. They use Build Exact. They absolutely crush it on the pricing. It's accurate. It's, really detailed down to the level that they want it. And then they send it off and they go, hey, Julian, see below or as attached, right? And then Julian's left there going, oh shit, sticker shock. Okay, that's going to be 135K. Does that include this? Does it not include that? Uh, you know, Lots of just questions come in. And so you never send a price off to someone without the context around it. So in a perfect world, we put it together in a pretty looking doc. Okay, come down here. We've got a bit of an outline here of a proposal, right? So here's one here that we can put together. There's, looks like this. Fill it in with all the details of the project and everything else. But you also want to fill it in with stuff around the company. And what we do from that point there is we go back to the site, we message them or email them or call them, whatever. Hey, got it all together here. Um, when's a good time to run you through it? And they'll say, can you send it over? No, we don't. We don't actually do that because uh, there are so many variables to this, and it's really making sure that we compare apples with apples. So whether you've got quotes from other people or whether you don't, we want to make sure that we walk you through this, and so you understand how everything fits together, and clear any obstacles that might come up along the way. Tuesday at 2 o'clock or Thursday at 5. Cool. I'll see you then. And then when you turn up, you've got your printed proposal. Okay. Again, take it to the stationery shop, spend $3 on it, getting it bound and whatever they call that cover page and whatnot. Looks really nice. And then when you turn up, you're flicking through going, okay, here's what we looked at for pricing. Here's stage one, stage two, stage three, etc. And when you do that, they'll go, oh, why is that so much? Can't we do it like this? Or can we leave that one off? Or they'll start to unpack all those questions in front of you. Whereas if you just send them off an email with a price, you're basically just turning people away, okay? So always present it to them in person, and that way you can get the highest chance of moving things forward. And basically make sure that at every meeting or every interaction you have with someone, you end your current step with a next step. Okay. So when you finish wrapping that up, perfect. And they say, oh, I need to think about it, or I'm going to talk with, Johnny about it. Cool. When do you think you'll have a chance to talk with Johnny? Tomorrow? Oh, fantastic. Well, why don't give you a call on Thursday afternoon and we can talk about next steps and getting some of the paperwork done for the permits and whatnot. So I guess that's probably at it from a high end overview. It really comes down to speed and efficiency as far as you using all the tools available to you. So really nothing super advanced. Like I showed you the tools we have for the scope of work generator. We have another one which, acts as a QS and prices up a job and all that kind of stuff on a basic level. We won't be near accurate to what the team at Build Exact have done. But each one of those things are just designed to speed up the process so that you can get back to people quickly. Okay, and I can't emphasize that enough. It's 9 times out of 10, most people are just terrible communicators and they will sit on something or leave it in their inbox because they go, oh, that's hard work, or I've been meaning to get back to that person, but I haven't. So just do the basics, do them well, and follow things through really quickly, and you'll be surprised at how the momentum picks up for you. All makes sense? Fantastic. Nicole, do we have a process for doing those estimates? We often lose people here. Yeah, perfect. So if we're talking about the presentation of it, or you're talking about the design of it or anything else?
Hey, I'll just talk, it's easier.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
So like before you get to kind of quoting the exact job and that kind of stuff, like
Hmm.
the kind of ballpark figure, that
Yeah,
stage is where we're often losing people.
cool. So easiest thing we do from here is if I go back to I'll share my screen in a second. I'll go back to the same example, shrink this one up. Cool. So what we want to do is like I said before, we want to stagger it and like there is no point in doing a detailed estimate, right? At this point of just speaking with someone, but you know that the question's going to come up. So what we do instead is we have this other one here. So the first thing we need to do is after we speak with someone, we do a scope of work, okay, which generates the sort of outline of what they've spoken about on the phone and you guys have talked about. The next one you can do is click pricing estimate, save. And what that'll do is it'll actually generate a ballpark per stage kind of estimate, right, based off your local pricing and all these other things. Again, based off of that phone conversation that you've had. Now, the issue is that it's never going to be accurate. We'd call this 60%. But what you want to do, this is an internal note. And so this will appear on the right-hand side under the notes. You then copy, you go across here and you paste it in, and you just edit all the other stuff and you click send. And that's designed to give them some ballpark pricing at each stage. Okay, so site prep, foundation slab, framing, etc. Here's all the different parts and here's roughly what they're going to cost. Again, making sure they're round numbers and everything, and send it over to them, but also call them to run them through it. And at this point, is that within your budget? Or is that sort of what you're thinking of? Okay. On the initial phone call, you should ask those questions around budget and everything else already. So you understand sort of where they're at, and at which case, you might even say, well, hey, this is miles off. You might not even be in the ballpark. Or, we have, if I can spell, we actually have online estimates for projects where someone can go through here and they can get a ballpark project cost, okay? And they tap through a few questions and it gives them a rounded number. And at that point, they will fill out their budget and timeline and all this other stuff. And it'll generate them an estimate. And then when you look at those on the back end, you can see okay, the estimate came in at 200 and they put their budget as 180. That's doable, right? We can bring it in potentially within that. Or the estimates come in at 800 and they've said their budget's 500. Okay, maybe this person's dreaming and we should just quickly touch base with them. Hey, did you get the estimate? All makes sense. Had a budget. Cool. No harm done. No time wasted. But it's just a matter of like each step, just really reducing the numbers on the way through. And at that point, once you've got those things together, then we load it into our system, get the build exact pricing and everything like that, generate a proper um, estimate at that point, and then you can work with them on that sort of closer level. Does that make sense, Nicole?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. All good. Yeah. So, I mean, really just all we're doing is chunking it down into smaller pieces because everybody tries to just get everything done too fast or try to force things through when, it's just about chipping away slowly at all of these fundamentals. And that really, I can't emphasize enough how in life, it's the same as going to the gym. You can't just turn up fat and walk away with a six pack. You've got to train and you've got to do it on a consistent basis for months and do the plan. And it's just the same thing in your sales process. Cool. Awesome. Anything else from your end, Julian?
No, Nicole, I was just going to ask there, are you using any software or is it a manual estimate you're doing at the moment? You might be using us, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. My partner does it all. That's
Yeah,
his job, but I know for we do have builder price,
yeah,
which I mean I'm struggling to get my head around a bit. So
Yep.
yeah.
Cool.
yeah. You're based in New Zealand, I'm guessing?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Yeah, builder price we've seen, they seem to be pretty decent size in New Zealand. We don't see them too much over here in Australia. Um, Kind of what Cameron's saying there. If you can get an export from it, like obviously you've got the stuff that you can use as a general AI, like he's showing you, but if you've got the ability to once you're getting a bit further on in an estimate and you can actually be a bit more fine-tuned, like it would help to use something like ChatGPT to push it. You can use all that stuff for free. Like I think you get so many free goes every month or every day or something like that. So that could also help you. But yeah, I don't know. Is it price shock that people are having? Is it just a topic?
Yeah, it's price, and then
Hmm.
a lot of people are shopping,
Hmm.
like getting quotes from various places and being like, okay, well these guys are cheaper. We're gonna go with them. So yeah, there's been a bit of that lately.
I can share a script with you guys that basically we cover off on a phone call. Um, I've done hundreds of sales calls personally, and I still have a laminated script on my desk. So, like, there is a framework that you should follow when you're doing these things, and it's not about hard selling people. It's just about that consultative approach and making sure that you're ticking all the boxes of getting the information out of their head and also following your own process and things. But there is one particular phrase that you use, and so qualify them all the sort of thing. You speak with them on the phone, and if they say, "Oh, we're looking at other people and stuff," totally cool. Hey, that's not part of our process. Or, hey, have any of these people done a feasibility study with you, right? And you can kind of reframe your expertise in a way that is different to them. Or if it's just someone new that hasn't mentioned any of those things, and that's fine. You go, blah, blah, blah. Tell me more about a project. Cool. Is it this? Is it that? Trying to get the information about what they're trying to achieve. And then you pivot the conversation. Because remember earlier I said a lot of people have basically the phrase or the most common question we see from people in conversations that have been had is, I have plans, I have a budget, I have an idea, whatever. I don't know where to start. So that phrasing of I don't know where to start is what we're trying to flip on its head. So you speak with them on the phone, and then halfway through the conversation, you say, "Hey, awesome, Julian. Sounds like your project is really exciting. I think it's going to be a really cool thing based off your situation that you're trying to hit. Do you want to know a little bit about our process?" And then you shut up, and naturally people go, "Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, we don't do free quotes. We're not like that because I don't know what everyone else is. I don't know if you've spoken with anyone else, but doing a free quote takes a lot of time, or doing a quote takes a lot of time. And generally, if you're doing it for free, you're going to rush it and get it wrong. So instead, what we do is we try to work with people to get clarity on their needs, wants, and goals, their budget, their timeline, and any issues they might face along the way. We do that as part of what we call a feasibility study. Do you think that would be helpful for your situation? And they'll go yes or no. And if they say no, cool, not a problem. Johnny down the road is, will probably take care of you, no problem. Or if they say yes, you go, perfect. So with that feasibility study, it's just 800 bucks, right? Or it's just 1,000, or it's $3,000. And what we do is we get a comprehensive plan together for you so that you don't go and waste time with an architect and draw $20,000 plans that end up stuck on a wall because they're too out of scope to be built. Does that seem like something that'd be helpful? Yeah, totally. Okay, perfect. Well, let's get this locked in. When are you free to run through this with, your partner Johnny? So a lot of this is positioning across each stage of the process, but literally just having that sort of phrased into the conversation that you have with people. It takes you away from being one of many, because that's literally what people think of, like, oh, if you're not going to do a free quote, then Johnny down the road will do a free quote, or they'll do a free quote. And instead, what you want to do is reframe to say, this is a better way of doing it, because it legitimately is. And I do feel like we're doing a disservice to people when, the free quote's going out the door, because they're going to get stung at some point with the lack of clarity, right? Cool. Hopefully that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Can we had a webinar of someone beginning of the year, and it was a builder on the webinar as well, and it was him talking about how he's put his process now to be working with architects in the very beginning stage of it. I think he said he saved a client something like $80,000 just by moving a wall like this far or
Yep.
something.
Yep.
I always think that's like a funny story to say, because I think sometimes, like, no knock on architects, but I feel like sometimes they're more concerned about the design than the budget of it. And it goes to the
100%.
builder, and the builder's the one that has to tell them it's double the price of what your architect has
Yeah.
designed.
Yeah, yeah. And you guys always come off as the bad guys. So yeah, I think ironically enough, we get a lot of people who come through the online estimate approach, and their email address is like something such architects, so they are even bringing their own clients, or their own things through the estimate system to get a ballpark on it, because it's not their area of expertise, and so that's why it's much better to work collaboratively with them. But what you don't want to do, and I had to scold one of our ex guys that we were working with, is he had a stellar of a lead come through. They're looking for a new build and all this sort of stuff. Great prospect. And he said, "Do you have plans?" "No, we don't." "Okay, well, there's nothing really I can do at this point. You need to go off and find someone to draw you up some plans. And when you've done that, come back and speak with us." I'm just like, dude, could you be, more anti-sales if you tried? Uh, you're not being helpful to the client, right? You're not being helpful to yourself. And so again, if you were to go, hey, let's let's figure out what you're trying to do. Let's go through this process. It's going to cost you, a little bit of money, a little bit of time. And at that point, we can introduce you to our preferred architect, right? And there's so many different ways you can approach it. But yeah, just those fundamentals, I think, will go a long way. Cool. Nice one. Well, I think that's pretty much it. We can probably put a pin in it here. If there's any other questions, happy to answer those now or later in the chat, or shoot me an email or a smoke signal or a carrier pigeon. Happy to help. Um, Likewise, if you guys want to talk about pricing and things like that, Build Exact has got a really great solution. I know the AI side of things has just launched recently, which is fantastic. But all of this stuff is just about speed, and the faster we can get back to people and just show how professional we are, the more that you will sign more deals. Uh, yeah, anything else you would add, Julian?
No. Nicole, I will say, I'll just put a link into the chat here. We've got a webinar next week that's with an estimator, Tara. She like expert user of Build Exact, and we're going to go through how she estimates. So it's not how Build Exact are telling you how to do it; it's how she does it and her rules and her way of working. And they're not always the rules that we say, but I'll pop the webinar link in there if you want to come along and join, or just watch through to see how the AI stuff works. Because yeah, some of that is really powerful. Like a bathroom reno in 3.5 minutes was does it all for you, categories, everything, all supplier pricing, everything LinkedIn.
Yep.
But no, Cam, I think like I've been on a few sessions over like the last couple of years or so, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit in our sessions before, but the whole thing about like how do you close more sales? And I think sometimes it it's made like a mountain out of a molehill a little bit. And I
Mm.
think it's just doing those little basics right the whole way through and kind of putting yourself on a custom journey. Like for me, if I'm trying to I always say if the sales part of the business is the nicest that business will ever be to you,
Yep.
that's the quickest they're ever going to get back to you. It's I'm assuming, getting a warranty claim through and stuff like that is going to take considerably longer than getting a sales quote through.
Yep.
So I always kind of say if that part of your business and your service isn't focused around like speed and quality of getting back in touch with people and things like that, you're always gonna have a bit of trouble. So I think it's always about just doing those basics right. There's not like a huge giant like social media strategy that you have to think. I think once you've got people in the door, I think it's
Mm.
nurturing them the right way through.
Yeah.
I think Leighton, you might have joined just as we're about to finish, man.
Epic timing. There's a replay for you though, man. I'll send that over to you.
I can't hear, but I'm assuming there's like probably an O and then a four-letter word somewhere in there.
Yeah.
The slight head nod is
Yeah. No, that's all good. Awesome, guys. Well, hey, we'll put a pin in it here. I will do my best fanciest video editing and chop the mumbling out of the video and just upload that and send it out to everyone for a replay. And if anyone wants access to some of the tools and resources and things that I shared today, then feel free to reach out, contractorscale.com, and we can shoot those over to you. So appreciate it, Julian. Thanks, man.
yeah, awesome, mate. Thank you.
Cheers.
Good
See you
times.
guys.